Pulplit Productions presents H.P. Lovecraft, The Complete Fiction Omnibus Collection, The Prime Years, 1926 to 1936. Written by Howard Phillips Lovecraft, edited and annotated by Finn J.D. John, narrated by Finn J.D. John. And now, H.P. Lovecraft, The Complete Fiction Omnibus Collection, The Prime Years, 1926 to 1936. Forward. This volume is part of our three-part omnibus collection of the fiction writings of H.P. Lovecraft. These 3 volumes comprise the entire collection of Lovecraft's fiction output published between 1908 and 1935, with some of the more important of Lovecraft's poems and non-fiction writings included for context. Readers new to Lovecraft should start with this volume. As befits its subtitle, The Prime Years, it includes the Lovecraft stories that nearly all scholars and readers agree are his best. However, readers who want to follow Lovecraft's growing and developing skill and story sense chronologically may want to start with the first volume in the sequence subtitled The Early Years, and the third volume, covering work Lovecraft wrote for or with other authors, is subtitled Collaborations and Ghostwritings. These 3 volumes together comprise roughly 2,000 pages, all formatted in the characteristic 2-column style of the original pulp magazines in which they were published. What's new in this edition? Several major changes differentiate this second edition from the first. Not the least of these is its name. While in the first edition this volume was subtitled Volume 2, we have eliminated the numbering scheme. What was subtitled Volume 1 is now subtitled The Early Years, and what was subtitled Volume 2, that's this volume, is now subtitled The Prime Years. Other changes are as follows. All 1926 work was moved from the early years to the prime years. This means the Call of Cthulhu, the most requested story of Lovecraft's oeuvre, is now in the second volume rather than the first, as are The Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath, Cool Air, Pickman's Model, The Strange High House in the Mist, and The Silver Key. This change has the effect of dividing this omnibus neatly into its 2 most natural parts, the pre-supernatural horror and fiction era, in the early years, and the post-supernatural horror and fiction era here in the prime years. It also means that readers new to Lovecraft who typically seek out the Call of Cthulhu and start there will acquire the prime years in which his best and most representative work appears. We're hoping this will prevent readers new to Lovecraft from giving up on him too soon, as our sales figures from the first edition clearly suggest they have been doing. We have added some selections of Lovecraft's poetry to this collection. Other collections by other publishers, especially The Ancient Tract, The Complete Poetical Works of H.P. Lovecraft, edited by S.T. Joshi, do a far better job of curating Lovecraft's poetry. But we felt that readers would appreciate having a few of his most relevant weird poems included in this collection. Finally, we've added a substantial work of secondary source scholarship, the timeline of Lovecraft's life and work, which appears in the appendix at the end of the book, where it is easily referenced as needed. It is duplicated in the final pages of The Early Years as well. This is to ensure that the entire timeline is handy as a reference at all times. A biographical briefing. It is ironic that the writing for which Lovecraft is most remembered today represents such a tiny fraction of his total writings. His letters alone ran to hundreds of thousands of pages, but despite their volume they had nowhere near the influence on 20th and 21st century literature that the spare canon presented in this modest 3-volume collection has had. What follows here is a continuation of sorts of the brief biography of our author started in The Early Years. Again, this fleeting sketch is by no means a substitute for a real detailed biography of the author. Rather, it's designed to help the reader fully appreciate the stories by placing them into context and understanding their role in their author's life. This is especially helpful in reading Lovecraft because throughout his career, each of his stories built on his previous work, sometimes in remarkably subtle ways. Lovecraft's writings were created in the context of a growing fictional universe to which his works make additions, references, and elucidations throughout his literary career. Being familiar with that context and with it that fictional universe, or as much of it as Lovecraft has chosen
Sample complete. Ready to continue?